All right, guys, I'm really excited to talk to Lauren today from the Skin Scholar on Instagram. Lauren is an amazing cosmetic PA. She does dermatology in general, but her cosmetics are amazing. I would totally let her inject my face. And she's just awesome. So I'm really excited to share her story with you. She's been all over the place. She recently moved from California to New York, and she's so fun. So we recently met at a conference at SDPA, and I'm so glad that I was able to connect with her and share her story with you guys. All right, so if you just want to go ahead, you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
All right. Hey guys, my name's Lauren. To school at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. It was a surgical PA program at the time. And I started my career in plastics and transitioned to derm about maybe a year or a little more later. And I currently practice in San Francisco, California. And that's it.
Cool. All right.
From a PA perspective.
We'll ask more about being a PA later. So how did you decide to become a PA? Kind of, how did you get to that point? Was that something you always wanted to do, or?
Not at all. So I was definitely a science kid. That was my favorite subject. You know, for Christmas, I got the weird science kid gifts, like put, like the 2-liter bottle, put the pen cap in it with the penny on it and see what happens. That was, so I knew something in science. I really liked biology class. And so that's sort of when I went down the medicine train. But I actually didn't know what a PA was until I was a senior in college or in high school. So I was dead set on the doctor track, not nursing, not anything else, dead set on the doctor track. And I spent my senior year of high school more or less interning at different medical practices. And I happened to be in an orthopedic practice, and it was like a sports medicine guy. He was the doctor I was in Wisconsin, so the Milwaukee Brewers at the time, and he had a PA. His name was Jeff. And to be honest, I didn't know Jeff was a PA. I just thought Jeff was a doctor. And so I spent most of my time with Jeff, not with the doctor. And I had a blast. And I learned more and more and more about this PA profession and what a PA was. And at the time, it was not, like I'm going to be a PA or I'm going to be a doctor or whatever. It was, wow, there's more options than just being a doctor. So I went to college and I knew I was going to do something in medicine. So of course I was a pre-med or biology. It was called biological sciences major. And as I studied, medicine, I explored different options. So I have a mother who does a lot of free time research. And so she sent me a list of all 100 medical careers that she could find. And so I learned about all of them. I mean, from something like phlebotomy to pharmacology or being a pharmacist or, hospital administration, blah, blah, blah. And so I got curious about PA. I liked the versatility. I don't know about you guys, but I have a short attention span. The idea that I didn't have to pick one specialty to be in for the rest of my life was attractive. In addition, I was a sports kid, so I only knew how to be on a team. I never played an independent sport. I never played golf or skiing or track. It was always volleyball, softball, dance team, team sports. And so that was how I liked to think. I liked to think in terms of team. So the idea that I could be a PA, be in medicine, potentially change my specialty, and be on a medical team is what really brought me to be a PA.
Okay, so you kind of started pursuing that, and then did you apply what did you take a gap year? What did your application look like?
So I graduated from Rutgers. I studied abroad a bit, and then I took a job in a healthcare IT company. Maybe you guys have heard of it. It's an EMR company called Epic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like Cerner or Meditech, but now it's very big, but it wasn't as big 10 years ago. So Epic is a software company. They make the hospital EMR systems, or they do everything from radiology to, the pharmacist to the surgeon to the anesthesiologist to even the back office software. So I worked there for almost 2 years. I was on the anesthesia team. So they had an application called Anesthesia, which was just for CRNAs and anesthesiologists. And then they had another application called OpTime, which is real-time operating room documentation. So the counts and the timeout and, all the details of things that are usually written down in the operating room were now electronic. So I implemented software. So I traveled the US to teach different hospital professionals how to use it. So nurses, anesthesiologists, CRNAs, surgeons, PAs, whatever. So I spent a lot of time in the operating room. And my intent was to apply to PA school that first year. I still wasn't sure for sure whether I wanted to do MD or PA. And this software job gave me a little time, one, to figure it out. Two, I needed more healthcare experience. I played sports in college, and so I did not have a lot of hours. And so I did two things in my 2-year gap. I got certified to be a nursing assistant in Wisconsin. It's like a 3-month degree. Mm-hmm. And then and I worked in an Alzheimer's unit, and I did a ton of shadowing. In addition to working in the operating room to do software, I did plenty of shadowing in healthcare hours as more on the weekends or on the side or at night or whatever. So that was what I did in my 2 years. So that was really my healthcare experience and my shadowing time. I graduated with it's a 3.7 something GPA and a biomedical sciences major with another biomedical sciences minor. They had sort of general categories. So that was sort of my application.
Okay, cool. So you had some interesting experience going into it for sure. I mean, that's definitely not something that everyone does. How many schools did you apply to?
A lot, like 20.
Okay.
Maybe it was 19, but I remember it being like an unrealistic number compared to my classmates.
Gotcha.
I think it was like 20.
What was the reason there? I mean,
So I really wanted to get in.
Okay.
And I had a decent application, but at the time when I was applying, there were so many funny rules. So like a minimum of 2,000 hours, or you have to have a previous healthcare job, right? Like you had to be a nursing assistant, or you had to be this, or you had to be that. All of the things I really wanted to apply once. And if you're going to do it twice, you're going to spend the same amount of money in the same amount of time. So you might as well just spread a wider net. Now that does mean I wrote an insane amount of essays.
Yeah.
I wrote an insane amount of essays. The good thing is you can reutilize, reuse some of them.
Just make sure you put the right school's name.
Right. Absolutely. There were a couple that were timed when I was applying. I remember Utah specifically. I really liked Utah because they had the Travel of the World Abroad program.
You would like that.
I don't know if they still do, but they did at the time. I thought it was really cool to do. It's more than rural medicine, right? It's like underserved medicine. Mm-hmm. And so theirs was, I think, 3 essays, and you had so many characters, and you had to do them all in under 30 minutes each. So I remember that one being, extremely difficult for me. I like to think and rewrite and reread, and so that one was hard. But yeah, I think I applied to like 19 or 20 schools, and I only got into, I think, 7.
Okay,
and
how many did you interview?
I only got interviews. I got interviews at 7.
Okay,
I didn't get in. I got interviews at 7, and I got into 3.
Okay, and then you picked ultimately
UAB, which was Alabama, Birmingham. Reason being, at the time there were only 2 surgical programs, and I spent so much time in the operating room. I knew I wanted to do surgery, or at least I thought I did then. And I didn't get into Cornell. That's the truth. Okay. So UAB was my only other surgical option. And I honestly, before I got offers from the other 2, I accepted UAB. I ended up getting offers from the other 2, but I just accepted UAB from the beginning.
Okay. What was the most difficult part of PA school for you?
Pharmacology, to be honest.
Yep, me too.
I now that I work in medicine, I'm sure you too. Now that we work in medicine, the drugs make so much more sense. You know, they all stick. And I think it's because we have to utilize them regularly. And even through rotations, pharmacology was much easier afterwards. But in PA school, I really struggled because it's for the most part, it's just memorization. So I had thousands of flashcards. It worked. I did well in the exams, but I had thousands of flashcards. Just name of the drug, class of the drug, you know, mechanism of action of the drug, side effects of the drug, anything else you need to know about the drug. It was just massive flashcards. And I think that was the hardest part for me.
Yeah, I agree. It didn't click until I was on rotations and actually able to apply that stuff. It was really hard.
Yeah.
I failed my first pharm test. By failed, I got like a 74 and passing was 75.
Right.
It was ridiculous anyway. But anyway, I survived as well. Was there anything unique about UAB that you just loved or about the area?
I had never lived in the South. I never lived in the South. One plus, I have a younger brother, and he was actually going to school at Auburn at the time, Auburn, Alabama. So I got to live close to my brother, which was kind of fun. I did not know anybody. I knew nothing about the South. I went to school in New Jersey. I went to Rutgers undergrad. And then I moved back to the Midwest, so I had never even been to the South other than, you know, like Disney World.
That's not the South.
Well, I mean, you know,
it's Florida. They don't count.
So I'd never seen anything. I think what was the most interesting about UAB was the surgical. I think they actually still have it, but I know the program's changed a lot since I left. It's no longer considered surgical. They took that out of the name. But they have I don't know how, this is a bit controversial, but they have a surgical lab, it's more than a sim lab. They use pigs, not necessarily live pigs, but you learn surgical techniques. Suturing, pig skin is very similar to human skin in the depth and thickness of the layers and the way that you would close any incision on human skin. So we practiced everything. We got to see, you know, what a nephrectomy looked like. We got to see everything alive, semi-alive, you know, on the inside, which was really, really unique.
That's interesting.
What'd you say?
So that's interesting. I didn't know they had that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know, they still do. And like I said, I'm sure it's pretty controversial now, but it wasn't as controversial then. It was really neat. They have a big research center, and that was part of their research center. That was really cool. That was probably my favorite part. I'm sure, like any other program, you get to know the faculty, and not all the faculty is still there, but I had a really unique set of instructors, and that's probably the most unique part of UAB. Like I said, not all of them are there anymore, but 3 or 4 people that were so passionate about PAs succeeding in the world. Now everybody is in education, but the 4 of them were exceptional.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Now you went from didactic to clinicals. Did you know you wanted to do plastics derm? How did that come to be?
So no. Before going into rotations, I thought I was going to be like in the ER, something fast paced. In clinicals, I didn't have the best ER rotation. To be honest, I was in a rural hospital, and yes, I was pretty much alone the whole time, which is cool as a PA student, but we didn't see, I just didn't get a lot of action. It was very slow. It was a slow time of year. I mean, I had the occasional like lacerations, this and that, but nothing really crazy. So before rotations, I was set on the ER. I did a rotation in trauma surgery, and that was cool. It was at a trauma 1. I was like student number 92 in the group, but it was still cool to be a part of it. Yeah. You know, crazy traumas come in. You got to figure out how to save the life and send them on their way. It was really unique. I was sure I wanted to do trauma surgery. That was it. Then I was selected for a rotation at MD Anderson. So MD Anderson is a cancer center. at the time, I don't know if they still do this or not, but at the time you could apply as a PA student to do a rotation there, kind of like an away rotation. And you could sort of choose what specialty you wanted to be in. Of course, it's something related to oncology. And I ended up on a reconstructive team. So post-breast oncology reconstruction or post-head and neck oncology reconstruction. And that was really cool. I mean, bilateral mastectomy, patient comes in, they're now healthy and cancer-free, but you have to create something from nothing. Or, you know, they have this huge tumor in their neck, massive excision, they're missing bone, they're missing soft tissue, they're missing structural features. And so you have to create something from nothing. And that was really cool. MD Anderson has a Microvascular Fellowship. So they do these huge abdomen flaps and they keep the vessels alive and they reattach them under the microscope, basically, microvascular. Gosh, yeah. Those surgeries are insanely long, but it was really inspiring. And I think part of why I liked it so much is those kinds of whatever it is, and they come out the other side, even giving them something to make them feel more normal, they're just so happy. It's a different kind of happy, right?
Yeah, no. I did a rotation in breast surgery and it was my favorite rotation. Yeah. Like breast cancer, like it was by far my favorite rotation.
Yeah. So that's how I was set on plastics. So I left school, and maybe this is expiring to all you PA students out there, inspiring. So I left school in Birmingham, and I was dating my husband at the time, and I had an offer to work at MD Anderson on that team. And my husband moved to San Francisco from New York at the time, and so we weren't married, but I had to make that tough call. I was that girl that said I would never move for a guy, I would never change my career for a guy. I'm that type of woman.
Just wait till you have a baby.
Right. I would never change anything about my life. Yeah, it happened. So I flew to San Francisco. I used all my hotel points, no money. I just finished grad school, right? Basically broke. I rented a car and I created 6 resumes. Primary care, ER/urgent care, ortho, plastics, I don't remember what the others were, but I had 6 resumes based on whatever specialty and cover letters to go with them. Before doing this, I did a ton of research on pretty much every doctor I could find within like a 10-mile radius of my husband's job. And I walked into every practice. I did not call them. I did not apply online. I walked in, I handed whoever the receptionist was, my resume with a cover letter, a picture of my face, and I said, I know you guys don't have any PAs, or I know you have 2 PAs, or whatever. I did a bunch of research on the practice, but I think you need to hire another one. And I think I'm the right person for the job. So I did this like 200 times in 5 days. And I got 2 interviews. Two interviews. One in plastics, which is the one I ended up taking, and another one in primary care. And maybe like 3 weeks later, this plastics job flew me back to San Francisco from him. And I was here for like 2 days, and I interviewed and I spent some time in their practice, and they made me an offer. And it's San Francisco, so of course it was better than Houston, slightly. If you look at the tax differences, it wasn't better, but I didn't think about that.
Right.
Anyway, my husband was here, my boyfriend was here, so I moved to San Francisco and I took a plastics job.
Awesome.
That was not what I expected, and what the job was a little bit different. In the interview, I went to the hospital with one of the doctors, and we did like a dog bite case. So I thought that they did a mix of cosmetic plastics and a mix of, like hospital plastics, reconstruction. Yeah. I was there on a unique day. In the year and a half that I worked for this practice, we did not do another reconstructive case.
Oh no.
So it was all cosmetic plastics, which wasn't bad. It was different than anything that I'd ever experienced. And it was in a very fancy suburb of San Francisco. So it was a different type of people than I had experienced in Houston or Birmingham, for that matter. And me and the doctors quickly realized that I was more profitable to the practice or beneficial to the practice doing things that they couldn't do. If they had a big tummy tuck or a big abdominal surgery, a circumferential body lift or whatever, I would join them and help them close, because that takes 2 to 3 hours. And if you have 2 people doing it, it's faster. But others, I more or less built them a med spa.
Okay.
Again, not at all what I expected to get into, but lasers are kind of fun to play with. And when you start to learn about the skin and the way that the skin reflects the rest of the overall health of that person, it's really interesting. And it sort of sucks you in. And so I very quickly got into, I will say dermatology, but not actual dermatology.
Yeah.
I built them a med spa, a cosmetic dermatology practice. So I was doing skincare, lasers, Botox, injectables, peels, acne, rosacea, eczema, even benign lesion removal at the time.
Yeah.
Or, IDNs that needed to come off or whatever. Cyst injections, and everything was cash and not through insurance, but it was a lot of dermatology. And to make a long story short, this practice hired another doctor wanted to do med spa, not surgery. So new doctor took over the med spa. As a PA, that's not helpful when there's not a lot of patients. And what I had built the med spa to be was now being taken over by a new doctor. And so I took the opportunity to leave. Nothing went bad. It was just, it would have been a difficult spot to be in. So I joined a derm practice. This was a dermatologist who was a Mohs surgeon and had never worked with anyone else. At the time, she was looking to hire a doctor. And I'm cheaper than a doctor, and I more or less sold myself on the fact that I'm cheaper than a doctor and can do a lot of the same things, but maybe not everything. She wanted to do Mohs surgery, which is great because that's the only thing as a PA that I couldn't do. So I learned dermatology. We had let's call it a fellowship. For the first few months of my time with her, I more or less shadowed her or was a great medical assistant.
Me too. I did the same thing.
Right. Yeah. And so it was sort of a dermatology fellowship, because the truth is I didn't do a dermatology rotation. And so the extent of my dermatology knowledge was the 3 board questions that I answered on my board exams, because that's all that I had in derm. So for a few months I learned derm, and then she and I opened a second office for her, and I started practicing independently. And I was there or I guess I'm still technically there, but I was there full-time for 3 years, and now I've been there part-time for another 6 months.
Okay, cool. Yeah. At this point in your career, what percent, I guess, would you say are you more medical, or what percent are you cosmetic at this point?
In that dermatology practice, I started at 100% medical because I had signed a non-compete with my plastics practice, so I couldn't take any of my patients with me. So I started at 100% medical. In the 3 years that I was there, I ended up about 80-20, 80% cosmetic, 20% medical. And now I only work there part-time. So when I go back to San Francisco and practice, I'm only cosmetic.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about derm for a minute and working in derm, because you probably get a lot of questions. I get a lot of questions. People not only want to know how to find jobs, which we've kind of covered, but they also just want to know about the job. And I feel like there are a lot of misconceptions, especially in the cosmetics arena. Totally. I feel like there are a lot of PAs, and I see this a lot on like forums and groups who think like, oh, I'm just going to go open a med spa and do injectables, and I'm just going to hire a doctor who doesn't do that. And I don't know. I just like your thoughts on it. And
it's a lot harder than people think. And it's a lot more expensive than people think. Opening a med spa is not like $100,000 investment. It's like a $2 to $3 million investment. A single laser is somewhere between $300 and $500K. And in addition to it being really expensive to do, the skill level that people think you need and the skill level that you actually need don't really match. Injectables are very risky. So are lasers. Lasers are very, very risky. And so leaving PA school, not having been actually trained on it, or not understanding the physics behind lasers, you're asking for complications. It's not nearly as easy as you think. Maybe skincare, sure. You want to get into skincare, you can learn about skin types, you can learn about what types of ingredients are good for certain skin types. But if you want to get into filler, Botox, even peels or any type of laser or light therapy, I would highly recommend a year or two of at least of learning under somebody, and then several years of independent practice first. A day in cosmetics, I will see somewhere between, at the lowest, maybe 12 to 15, at the highest, maybe 25 to 30 patients. And it will, in my world, it ranges a bit. I don't block my schedule for certain things. So if somebody wants to do a laser and then the next patient wants to do injectables and then the next patient wants to do a peel, I don't have a problem with that as long as it's scheduled appropriately. So, you know, some days are Botox heavy. Botox are quick visits for the most part. Some days are filler heavy. Filler can be somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour, depending on how much in there. I do things like Nova threads. Nova threads are PDO suture lifts, so like thread lifts. Those may take me much longer, probably 45 minutes to an hour to like prep and set it up and do the consultation and numb and blah, blah, blah. And then lasers, I've worked in 2 different practices with, I'm not comfortable with the laser until I've treated, I don't know, 25, 30, 40 patients and really understand that laser. I took a laser physics class while I worked in plastics, just so I understood lasers and skin anatomy. But the laser can, depending on what it is, can take 5 minutes, but it also can take an hour if you're doing like a full resurfacing treatment. Yeah, that's what I would say to new PA students out there. It's not as easy as you think, and it's much more dangerous than you think. And in something that's purely elective, having a complication leads to bigger problems than in something that's absolutely necessary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I also just in my practice, and I am not nearly as cosmetic as you are. We're probably 20%. I mean, I do a few things here and there every day. But what I found is sometimes I feel like the patient population in cosmetics is a little bit more
different,
more difficult, a little bit more demanding than your normal patient, and that that can be tiring, honestly.
Emotionally draining.
Yeah, emotional. Yeah, it can just, it's a little bit much sometimes.
Absolutely.
And there's just some different expectations there. And I think one thing I realized early on, and you probably, I mean, I know you are great about this, but I realized if I can tell up front I'm not going to meet a patient's expectations,
don't do it.
It's better for me to just not do it, and to tell them that I'm not going to be able to do what you want me to do. And that's usually the person who tells me they've been to 4 different plastic surgeons and 3 different dermatologists, and they had this filler but didn't like this, and can I do this to their lips or their whatever?
Right.
And I'm just like, okay, I don't think what you're going for is achievable.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's end this relationship right now.
You are 100% right. I think that is one thing that a lot of people don't realize in this industry. You are dealing with elective procedures. This is, think about it like cheaper plastic surgery, and which means people are giving you their hard-earned cash to do something with an expectation to look better or different or whatever it is. And so I went to a lot of trainings recently, and one of them, the lead injector got up there and she said, I'm going to say something and I want this to stick. She said, you as an injector are never going to be judged by the work that you do. You're going to be judged by the people that you say no to. And that's really hard to do. Somebody comes in, they want something, and you think you can maybe get somewhat there, but if you can't meet their expectation, you're dealing with a type of person that is going to be upset about it. This isn't a life-saving operation. This is completely elective, them giving you their hard-earned cash to have an expectation. So I actually took a consultation, let's call it boot camp, when I got into aesthetics, and I've now taken it 3 times. But every time we, the first day or the first series of exercises is about setting accurate expectations. We do this ridiculous exercise where you have something on a note card that you can't actually read or talk about what's specifically on the note card, but you have to get your partner to understand the situation without saying it out loud. You have to talk around it and give them the expectation that's on your card without.
Well, that's what patients will do. I mean, they come in, what can you do for my face? What? What?
Where to begin?
Yeah. So my first question is always, well, what bothers you most? I give them a mirror and say, what bothers you the most?
I love that.
Let's work on what bothers you, because what I see may not be what you see.
100%.
But I have some patients, what can you do for my face?
Right. I want to look 10 years younger. Do what you need to do.
Yeah. What does that mean to you?
That's hard. Yeah.
No,
Expectation management is a big part of the job in cosmetics, for sure.
Yeah. It is, I think, a tougher job than people give it credit for. And it's fun. I mean, it is fun. And I love doing cosmetics. I love injectables. I think, again, you do way more than me, but like, to me, it's almost like art. Like
100%.
You are shaping someone's face, and that is so cool. Like, to watch someone's cheeks change and their lips, like, it is so cool. Your lips, by the way, have been so good that you've been posting on Instagram. I'm like,
Thanks.
I need to go see more.
Thank you.
Let her work on me.
I put a ton of time and effort into that lately.
Yeah, no, they look great.
Thanks.
So yeah, but it's just, I mean, it is a lot of fun too. But
yeah, it really is rewarding, and it's very, for most things in cosmetics, it's very instantly gratifying. So back to my short attention span thing.
Like, watch,
most of it's pretty immediate. Maybe not a major laser treatment or something like that, but most
like
of it
Botox,
is immediately they have more volume or their line is softer or whatever it is. And so it's very rewarding in that sense.
Oh yeah, but it's also terrifying because I remember one of the very first patients that I did like filler completely on my own, like injected her, didn't do anything crazy, but I injected her on like a Thursday, and then Monday she was on my schedule.
Oh boy.
And so
either
I was
really good or really bad.
Out. I was like, oh my gosh, her face is falling off. She's necrosing. I occluded a vessel. This isn't good. I was freaking out all morning. And then she comes in and she's like, I just want a skin check. I love my face.
What?
Oh my gosh. She loved her filler, but she just wanted her skin check.
Oh, that's funny.
Did you have to come in
right
2
now?
Days afterwards?
Right now?
Oh, yeah.
No, I do. I try and force people to do 2-week mandatory follow-ups now, but it's sometimes hard to force people as much as I try.
Yeah. No, they sometimes don't want to come back. I always tell them to call me if they
need anything.
If they want me to look at anything. Yeah. We'll tell everybody where they can find you and follow along. And
sure. So I practice in San Francisco for a physician named Tracy Evans, and you'll find her under Tracy Evans, MD. Her practice is called Precision Dermatology, but don't Google that because it won't. In terms of social media, I run an account called The Skin Scholar, and there's an associated website, theskinscholar.com. If you want to email me, my email is lauren@theskinscholar.com. And I will soon be joining a practice in New York, and stay tuned for my upcoming announcement.
So fun.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.